God already decided to restore what you lost. The problem is, you are waiting for it the wrong way. And if you keep waiting the way you have been waiting, you might actually miss it when it comes. I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to tell you something that took me years of studying Scripture to see clearly. Something that Job knew, something that Peter learned beside a fire that smelled like the worst night of his life, something that Samson figured out in a prison while his enemies were celebrating. There is a specific sequence to how God restores things, and the sequence is almost always the opposite of what people expect. Most people think restoration looks like this. You suffer long enough, God takes pity on you, and He gives back what was taken. But that is not what Scripture shows. Not once. Not in any of the major restoration stories in the Bible. The sequence is different, and if you do not know what it is, you will spend years doing the wrong things in the waiting, wondering why the door hasn't opened yet when the answer was in the sequence all along. Here's the first thing you need to understand before anything else. God does not restore positions. He restores people. This is the part that changes everything, because most people who are waiting for restoration are focused entirely on the thing that was lost, the relationship, the dream, the financial position, the version of their life that existed before everything fell apart. And God is focused on something completely different. He's focused on you, on who you are becoming, on whether the person who receives the restoration is actually capable of holding it without it destroying them or corrupting them or becoming the very thing that holds them back from everything He actually has planned. Job's wealth was not restored first. 42 chapters of wrestling with God happened first. 42 chapters of questions with no easy answers, encounters with the divine that shattered Job's understanding of how everything works, and then a very specific act that most people reading Job's story completely miss. God told Job to pray for his friends, the friends who had sat with him in the ash heap and spent 37 chapters telling him his suffering was his own fault, the friends who had misrepresented God to him, the friends who had twisted his pain into accusation. God said, "Pray for them." And Job 42:10 records what happened next. The Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends. Not when he had suffered enough, not when he had learned enough lessons, when he prayed for the people who had made his suffering worse. Do you understand what that means? The restoration was on the other side of an act of forgiveness toward people who had not earned it. That's not a coincidence. That's the pattern. And it raises a question that I need you to sit with right now before we go any further. Is there someone in your story who made your pain harder? Someone who showed up when you were already down and made it worse, through judgment, through walking away, through saying the wrong things at the worst possible time? And are you still carrying what they did? Not in obvious bitterness. Sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's the way your voice changes when their name comes up, the story you still rehearse about what happened, the prayer you have never been willing to pray for them.
Job could not hold his bitterness and his restoration at the same time. He had to choose. And when he chose to pray for the people who had hurt him, the morning after that prayer, the fortunes returned. The diagnostic question in your waiting is not, have you suffered enough? The question is, who are you still not praying for? The second thing the pattern shows us is this: God almost never restores from a distance. He meets you at the exact point of your failure. Peter's story is the most precise example of this in the entire New Testament. The night Jesus was arrested, Peter stood by a charcoal fire in the courtyard of the high priest. Cold night, servants standing around the fire, and 3 separate times someone looked at him and said, "You were with Jesus." And 3 times Peter denied it, cursing and swearing by the 3rd time, "I do not know the man." Now hold that scene in your mind. Fast forward to after the resurrection. Jesus appears on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples come in from fishing, and John records a detail that most readers skim right past. there was a charcoal fire on the beach. This is the only other time in the entire Gospel of John that the Greek word for charcoal fire appears. The same author used it twice, deliberately. Jesus chose that setting, not the upper room where they had shared the Last Supper, not the temple courts, a charcoal fire on a beach at dawn, the same smell in the air as the night Peter had said, "I do not know the man." And then Jesus asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" One for each denial, not to punish him, not to rub his face in what he had done, but because healing requires going back to the wound, not around it, not to reopen it, to heal it at the source. Each of Peter's 3 affirmations did not erase a denial, it transformed one. By the end of that conversation, the same sensory environment that held Peter's worst moment had been completely overwritten with something new. What this means for you is uncomfortable. The area of your life that you most want to avoid, the memory, the season, the version of yourself that you would do anything not to revisit, that may be precisely where God is waiting to meet you. Not to reopen the wound, to heal it the only way a healing actually takes, at the source. You do not need to manufacture this, but you do need to stop running from it. The third thing, and this is the one that has given me the most patience in my own seasons of waiting, restoration grows quietly in the dark while no one is watching. When the Philistines captured Samson after Delilah had cut his hair and his strength had left, and he did not even know the Lord had departed, they gouged out his eyes, chained him with bronze shackles, and put him to work grinding grain in a prison. The man who had been a judge of Israel for 20 years, blind, humiliated, a spectacle. And then the author of Judges slips in one sentence so quietly you could almost miss it. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. That is the sentence. No announcement, no vision, no angel. Just a quiet biological fact inserted into the middle of a story about complete defeat. While Samson was grinding grain in a dark prison, while the Philistines were celebrating a victory and writing the ending of his story for him, God was not finished. The restoration was already underway, growing in a place where none of his enemies were paying attention. By the time they brought him out to be their entertainment, the strength was already back. They did not know it. They were still celebrating a victory that was in the process of being reversed.
If you are in a season right now that looks like it is over, I need you to hear this as clearly as I can say it. The evidence of God's restoration is often invisible in the early stages. It grows in the prison. It grows in the dark. It grows while the people who counted you out are celebrating. And the reason they do not see it is the same reason the Philistines did not see it. They do not understand what God does in hidden places. What is growing in your hidden place right now? You may not be able to see it, but the hair grows whether or not anyone is watching. The fourth thing, restoration in the Bible almost always comes with more than what was lost. Job received twice what he had, 14,000 sheep where he had 7,000, 6,000 camels where he had 3,000. But he did not receive his original children back. He received new children. And there is a grief in that, which any honest reading of Job has to acknowledge. The loss was real. It was permanent in a very specific way. What was restored was not the same as what was lost. It was different, and in most ways, larger. This is why the promise of restoration is not a promise that everything goes back to the way it was. Sometimes it does. Often it does not. What God promises is not sameness. He promises something better. And better is defined by Him, not by the picture you have been holding in your head of exactly what you want back. Joseph was not restored to being a shepherd in Canaan. He was elevated to second in command of Egypt. The magnitude of what he received was so far beyond what was taken from him that it could not have been imagined by the 17-year-old boy who was thrown into that pit by his brothers. And it required everything he went through, every false accusation, every forgotten promise, every year of waiting to be large enough to hold it. What you lost may not be what you get back. What you get back may be something you do not yet have categories to imagine. But if the pattern of Scripture tells us anything at all, it is that God does not abandon what He started, and what He restores completely. Before I close, I need to say one thing carefully, because this pattern can be misused. It is not a transaction. It is not a formula where you perform the required steps and restoration is automatically delivered. Job did not pray for his friends as a strategy to get his wealth back. He prayed for them because God told him to, and because after 42 chapters of wrestling with God, he had become the kind of man who could. Peter did not sit by that charcoal fire performing contrition to regain his position. He sat there raw and honest and said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." He had no resume to offer, only the knowledge of the one who knew him better than he knew himself. Restoration is always an act of grace. The pattern shows you what grace tends to look like in motion. It does not give you a lever to pull. So here are the questions that come out of everything we have covered today. Is there someone you have not forgiven, not because forgiving them guarantees your restoration, but because your heart cannot hold bitterness and breakthrough at the same time? Is there a place you have been running from, a memory, a version of yourself, a setting where God may actually be waiting to meet you and heal what you have been going around? Are you looking for visible signs when God may already be working in a hidden place, growing the hair, rebuilding the strength, reversing what looked like a finished story? And are you holding so tightly to a specific picture of what restoration is supposed to look like that you might miss the version God is actually building, which might be larger, different, and more significant than anything you would have designed for yourself?
These are not easy questions, but they are the questions the text asks. The morning after Job prayed for the people who had hurt him, the fortunes returned. The morning after Peter sat by a fire that smelled like his worst failure and answered honestly, he was given a commission that would shape 2,000 years of history. And the morning the Philistines brought Samson out thinking the story was over, he placed his hands on 2 pillars and prayed the most honest prayer of his life. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more." What they did not know was that he had already been remembered. The hair had been growing in the dark for weeks, quietly, without announcement, without anyone watching. If God is restoring something in your life right now, it may already be further along than you can see. The hair is already growing. The strength is already returning. The sequence is already in motion. Stay faithful in the waiting. Forgive what needs to be forgiven. Stop running from the places God is asking you to return to. Trust the one who works in hidden places. What is coming may look nothing like what was lost. It may be larger. It may be different. It may arrive in a form you never would have chosen for yourself. But God does not abandon what He started, and what He restores completely. If this message reached something in you that has been waiting for a long time, drop a comment right now. Just write, "The hair is growing." That is your declaration that God is already working in the hidden place, even if you cannot see it yet. Subscribe to The Narrow Path so we can keep going deeper into biblical truth every single week, and share this with someone who is in their prison season right now, still waiting, still hoping. This might be the word that gives them the patience to hold on.